What's going on, guys? T-Mart here, and today we're going to be going through every single weapon variant in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. I've got a list of all the names as well as the attribute changes. You guys know how some variants will do like +1 damage, -1 accuracy, things like that. So I've got all that information I wanted to share with you guys because it's really cool to see some of the stuff we can earn out of our supply drops as well as some of the weapons we should be hoping we get in these supply drops. So before we get started, I want to give credit where credit is due. Will Wheatley posted on the Den Kierson forums. I'll link it down in the description, and he's the one that put this list together. I know it took a lot of time, so big credit to him. Thank you so much, man. It's very, very helpful. But anyway, getting into this, here is the list of all the Ball 27 variants. We're going to go through, I'm going to show you guys a list for every single weapon in the game. I'm not going to read them all off to you. I'll point out, like 1 or 2 that I really like out of that list, but you guys can read the rest. And then also, you'll notice that for pretty much all the weapons, there are 2 elite versions, 3 professional versions, and then 4 enlisted versions of the gun. There's also marksman versions, which those are earned by getting 300 kills with the weapon. You get it automatically. And then sometimes there are other versions that you earn in other ways, like by pre-ordering the game and stuff like that. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into this. Now, here with the Ball 27, which 2 stand out for me? Number 1 is the Inferno. It's an elite version. It's got handling +2, fire rate +1, and mobility -3. So with this, you're getting faster reloads, shooting faster, but you just move a little bit slower. That's really not that big of a deal to me. So I think that one looks pretty good. Also, the 308 looks really, really good. That's a professional edition. It's got range +2, so you're going to be able to kill quicker at longer distances. Accuracy -1, so slightly more recoil, which already doesn't have much recoil in the first place. And then also handling -1, so you reload a little bit slower. So if you're playing on a larger map, that looks like a pretty good one as well. Now, next up, we've got the AK-12. The Rest in Peace edition looks very, very good. Accuracy +2, damage +1, magazine capacity -8, and mobility -1. So you move a little bit slower. You have 8 less rounds in your mag, but you have more accuracy, aka less recoil, and more damage. So that one sounds absolutely insane. The Feeder also looks pretty good. It's a professional edition, +3 magazine capacity, +1 reserve mags, and then -2 handling, so you reload a little bit slower, but you got a lot more ammo, which can come in handy if you burn through ammo quite a bit. And then finally, you've got the G edition, which this one you can unlock through the game. You get it by pre-ordering the game through the Advanced Arsenal pack or by buying the Season Pass, and it's the exact same weapon in terms of range and damage and the stats and stuff like that, but it looks like the Call of Duty Ghosts AK-12, not the new one in Advanced Warfare. And the Ghosts one has way better iron sights, so that one's actually pretty useful for that reason. I use it quite a bit. Now, next up, the ARX 160. The Steel Bite looks pretty good. It's got damage +3, accuracy -2, and fire rate -1. So with this thing, obviously it's going to have more recoil and you can't fire as quickly, but it's got +3 damage. So if you can make sure that first burst is on target, you're probably going to get a 1 burst kill, which sounds pretty powerful. Also, the Hole Puncher looks good. Damage +2, again, more 1 burst kills, accuracy -1, and then handling -1. Next up, we've got the HBR A3, the Insanity Elite Edition. I haven't used yet, but it looks pretty good. Range +2, damage +1, so that's going to turn that thing into a killing machine. Handling -1, reload speed really isn't that big of a deal, and then no optical attachments. The iron sights on this weapon aren't too bad, so if you can get used to that, Insanity would be pretty good. And then also Average Joe. This one you can unlock just by getting 300 kills with the weapon. I use the Average Joe Edition all the time. It's my go-to gun. Damage +1, range +1, so it's a killing machine. Handling -2, reloads a little bit slower. No big deal. Next up, we've got the IMR Assault Rifle. Bore Strike Elite Edition looks pretty good. Range +2, damage +1, accuracy -2, fire rate -1. So that's kind of like the Steel Bite Edition, the ARX 160. It's, if you can get that first burst on target, it's going to be a lot more powerful. And then also Hunter looks pretty good. Fire rate +1, so in case you missed that first burst, you can, keep shooting quickly. And then handling -1. Again, reload speed is not that big of a deal. You guys will notice that I really favor, like damage, range, fire rate, that kind of stuff over like mobility and handling. Because if you're gonna, move a little bit slower or reload a little bit slower in exchange for a more powerful weapon that kills quicker at longer distances, that's more important to me. So that's how I'm kind of classifying these things. Next up, we got the MK14. This one's actually pretty interesting. So Eagle Eye has an integrated quick draw grip, so it's automatically going to have that attachment on it. You aren't going to have to waste to create a class point to be able to equip it. Range +2, so it's going to be a killing machine. Accuracy +1, less recoil, and then in exchange, you're giving away 1 magazine capacity, so 1 bullet's not a big deal, and then most attachments are not allowed, which I don't mind the iron sights on the MK14, so that one actually looks pretty solid. And then also the Desecrator looks pretty good. It's a professional edition. Fire rate +2, so you can fire that thing more quickly and put more bullets in the enemies. And then mobility -2, movement speed, not that big of a deal. Next up, we've got the KF5. The Spanner looks pretty good. Range +3, fire rate -2, handling -1. Range is really important on the SMGs in this game. They aren't very good at range, so anything that makes up for that is very helpful. Also, the Genuine Professional Edition looks pretty good. Accuracy +1, so less recoil. Damage +1, so more damage. Range -1, and then no optical attachments. So that doesn't look too bad. Next up, we've got the MP11. The Goliath looks insane. It's got damage +3 and handling -3. So you're not going to be able to reload very quickly, but that thing is going to be a tank in terms of damage. So that's pretty cool. And then also the Savior looks really good. Integrated laser sight, so you're going to be able to spray more easily. Fire rate +1, and then accuracy -1. So it's going to have slightly more recoil. So the Savior looks like if you're trying to like rush around and spray and pray and really put a lot of bullets in enemies, that's going to be the go-to gun. Next up, the ASM-1 has a couple of pretty cool variants here. The Speakeasy Elite Edition has integrated extended mags, fire rate +2, damage -1, and range -1. Again, that's more of a close range weapon. And then also Reckless has integrated rapid fire, fire rate +1. So it's got like double fire rate enhancers and then handling -1. So again, that looks really, really good for those up close engagements. Now, next up, we got the SN6. This is actually a pretty good SMG in my opinion. And both of these kind of variants that I like have to do with making it a little bit more long range. So with the money one, you got accuracy +1, range +1, reserve magazines +1, handling and mobility -1, -2, and then the third also looks pretty good. Range +2, damage +1, mobility -3. So the money and the third are both pretty good to be able to increase the range of that thing and make it more deadly at those medium to longer ranges. The SAC-3, which is the automatic, kind of like a Kimbo gun in this game. I don't really use it that much. It's kind of fun to mess around with, but it's not very good. The only good one that looked good there was Blood and Glory, which is an Elite Edition. Fire rate +1, mobility +2, accuracy -1, handling -2. You don't really need accuracy when you're spraying and praying. Handling's not that big of a deal, so that wouldn't be too bad. Next up, we've got the AMR-9, which is the final SMG in the class, and it's a 5-round burst. There weren't really any that stuck out to me here. I kind of like the Pro Pipe, and I'm scared to say that because it does have the integrated grenade launcher, which that's not why I like it, but it also has +2 damage and -2 fire rate. So it's going to do more damage, fire slower, aka probably less recoil, so it's going to be a little bit more deadly at those medium to long ranges. And then on top of that, you have a grenade launcher, which I don't even think I've used once in this game. So yeah, that's that. Now, moving on next to sniper rifles, the Lynx doesn't even matter. It's the worst gun that Call of Duty's ever had, so you're not even going to pay attention to that one. Next up, we've got the Moors. The Silver Bullet looks pretty good. It's got damage +2, accuracy +1, fire rate and handling -2 and -1, so that looks pretty good. You got +2 damage, less hit markers. That's obviously a good thing. And then also Quick Bolt looks pretty good for those quick scopers. It's an enlisted weapon, but it's got fire rate +1, so you're going to be able to shoot faster in between shots, which is important. The NA-45, none really stuck out to me there. It's a weird weapon to me. Like, it doesn't kill in the first shot. It kills in the second shot if the second shot lands near the first one and it blows up. I don't know. It's weird. I don't really like that gun very much either. And then the Atlas 20mm, which is kind of a fun gun to use. I liked the ones that gave you more magazine capacity because it's only got, I think, 2 or 3 shots in its original magazine. So the Snapper gives you fire rate +2, magazine capacity +1, and then the improved action gives you magazine capacity +1. So those are both pretty good there. Now, next up, moving into shotguns, we're getting down towards the end here, guys. TAC-19 has a few good ones. My favorites are the Roundhouse, which gives you +1 fire rate, +1 range. Obviously, that's very good. When you're trying to kill people from medium ranges with the shotgun, it's tough. So you can fire faster and have more range. That's pretty solid. It's got -1 handling and -1 mobility in exchange. And then also Light Trigger has fire rate +1, mobility -1. The S12 Whirlwind is pretty good. Fire rate +2, magazine capacity +2. So you can shoot more and you have more, kind of ammo and reserves and ready to go. Accuracy -2 and handling -1. Neither one of those are that important in the shotgun. And then also Compliant looks pretty good. Magazine capacity +2, handling -1. Next up, we've got the Bulldog. Not something I've used a lot, but it's not too bad. The Face Hammer looks pretty good for when you're up close and personal. Accuracy +2, damage +1, handling -1, no optical attachments. Who's going to aim down sight and use an optical attachment on a shotgun anyway? That doesn't matter. Now, next up, the EM1. Something pretty interesting about this thing is a lot of the variants will change the colors of the beam. You can get like purple, green, yellow, blue, that kind of stuff. It varies from the normal red beam, so that's kind of cool. The polar vortex looks pretty good. It's the elite version. Handling +2, fire rate +1, mobility -3. What I like there is the fire rate, so it's gonna be able to put more, kind of like direct energy into enemies and be able to kill them faster. So that one looks pretty good. And then also magnified, +1 range, -1 handling. Looks pretty solid as well. Next up, we get the Pytech LMG. The loophole is actually really, really good. I use this quite a bit. Magazine capacity +50 bullets, so you can spray and pray for days. Accuracy +1, so you got less recoil. And then handling -3. Who cares about handling, man? Like, you aren't going to be reloading an LMG much, so that one's pretty good. And then also the exploit, which I don't have, but it looks pretty good to me. A range +3, so it's going to be a killing machine at longer distances. Accuracy -1, fire rate -1, magazine capacity -1. Next up, we've got the XMG, which is the dual LMGs. Not really a big fan of these things. Bacon and eggs doesn't look too bad. Damage +3, accuracy -3. You don't really need accuracy with these things. All you can do is spray. And then yin and yang also looks pretty good. You can fire faster in exchange for slower reloads. Next up, we've got the EPM3. This is like the direct energy sniper or kind of like, semi-automatic, direct energy thing. I don't know. I really haven't used it that much, but to me the Parsec and the Panorama looked pretty good. The Parsec Elite Edition has range +3 and can't use certain attachments. Panorama Professional Edition has an integrated heat sink, so you can shoot more without having to reload or let it cool off, or whatever you want to call it. And then also range +1 in exchange for accuracy -1. Next up, the last heavy weapon is the Amelie. The chickenery looks actually like super good. Integrated advanced rifling, so you're gonna do more damage over range. Also fire rate +2, so you're gonna fire faster, put more bullets down range in exchange for -50 magazine size. So that does kind of suck, it sucks to have to reload LMGs. But overall, that one looks pretty good. And then also Subverter looks pretty solid. Damage +2, magazine capacity -50 bullets. Now, next up, moving into secondaries and launchers and stuff like that. This will go quick. Atlas 45, I didn't really see anything special here. It seems like the normal Atlas 45 is pretty good, compared to some of these variants. The RW1, this is like my favorite secondary we've ever had in Call of Duty. The Rail Driver looks insane. +3 damage in exchange for -3 accuracy. So it already kicks like a crazy, horse, I guess you could say. So you better make sure you land your first shot with this thing with that -3 accuracy. But if you do, you're probably going to get a kill with that +3 damage. That one looks pretty good. And then also the Guardian Edition, which is professional, looks good. Integrated scope, which I really like the scope on this thing. Accuracy +1, and then handling -1. So with that, you're going to reload a little bit slower since you have to reload between every single shot. You're not going to be able to shoot as quickly, so you better make sure if you're using that thing, you get your first shot on target. Now, next up, we got the MP443 Grok. Haven't really used much of this in multiplayer, maybe not even at all yet, but a sighted looks pretty good to me. Integrated laser sight as well as accuracy +1 in exchange for handling -1. And then Snappy also looks really fun if you wanted akimbos, because it's got integrated akimbo, and then also fire rate +1. So you're going to be able to fire those things quickly, put a lot of bullets down range in exchange for a little bit less accuracy. That sounds pretty solid. Finally, the last secondary we have here is the PDW. PDW is actually really good in this game. I like it a lot, especially with extended mags, and it's not really good for those medium to long range gunfights, but it's good up close. So the Chucker and the Compact both stand out to me here. The Chucker does +3 fire rate, -1 damage, -1 accuracy, -1 range, so it's going to be able to fire very quickly, but have quite a bit of kick, so up close, that's going to be pretty solid. And then also, the Compact one has +1 fire rate, which again, I like, and -1 handling. You don't have to reload much with this thing, so that sounds pretty solid. And then finally, the last two kind of like categories of weapons you can get these variants on are launchers and specials, but the deal is they don't change the kind of like attributes of the weapon. Like the weapon still performs the same, it just looks different on the outside. So you guys can see here are all the launchers, and then here are all the specials. So yeah, there you guys have it. Those are all the weapon variants in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know which variant really stands out to you, whether it's one from this list or one that you've unlocked that you really like. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will catch you all later. Check out these two videos on the screen if you haven't seen them yet, and peace out, guys.